Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? New guy at work. First coffee break he started complaining about his ex who had full custody of the kids for some unknowable reason and also how he'd like to slash her throat with a rusty knife. Nice to meet you too, don't think I'll be taking breaks with you. New guy started at my job, we were outside smoking on first break. Keep in mind I have never met nor spoken to this dude in my life. He walks up, lights up his cigarette and says, "You know, I think my severe arachnophobia has transformed into an arachnophilia. I've been watching a lot of spider hentai while masturbating." He began to describe his new waifu pillow he bought. Her name and his plans to marry her. I was speechless. Edit. I work in a distribution warehouse for a clothing company. We were forklift drivers. He didn't last very long, but not because of things he said. He was constantly late for work, and twice a week he'd show up in Crocs, knowing damn well I've told him 100 times he needs closed-toe shoes. I'd have to send him home to change shoes. I told him just keep a pair of shoes in his car so he has something to wear at work. Didn't work, and eventually I had to let him go for excessive tardiness and absenteeism. Listen. Man. You can't just come into a thread and start up like this. Give other people a chance to participate before you just burn the whole thing down like this. Reddit is a communal experience, goddammit. Asked me, do you mind if smoke? Then proceeded to take out a meth pipe. New guy at work. Super fake by being overly excited and super overly comfortable with everyone in the first minute. He's all mommy this and poppy that to everyone and very overly touchy. We were almost all Hispanics there and everyone was uncomfortable. First phone call of the day. He hangs up cursing and taking it super personally that someone hung up on him. Daily occurrence in customer service. After about 6 months, I put in my 2 weeks notice solely because I couldn't work next to or with him anymore. He would also get overly gossipy and personal. My boss rejected my notice and transferred him. He couldn't stand the guy either. No one could. I was listening to the NEXIVM podcast and the clip of the founder saying he has 225 IQ. If I walked into a room and heard someone say that, I'd walk right back out. I used to brag about my IQ score. It was off of a free internet test. I was 14. I learned better. Number 14 is a good score for the IQ test. Keep telling everybody about it. There are different levels to being a psychic. I'm on the purple level so I can talk to the dead. Said a new employee at my previous job. Nope. The quiet boy at school sat next to me and told me how hard he felt when he took a shit and how many times he ejaculated that way. I never sat next to him again. I was in a job interview once and the manager cut me off mid-sentence to jump to a weird conclusion. Him. What do you think the performance of this algorithm would be? Me. Oh, it'll be in times. Him. Oh, you think it's going to be in? You think it'll be in? That's ridiculous, there's no way it would just be in. Me. You gotta let me finish speaking. He then cut me off mid-sentence twice more during our conversation. We didn't get along. Dude was a total tool. They talk negatively about someone else in a very judgy way. There was this mom in my daughter's school who seemed to know everyone. She talked to me and she spoke so bad about these people. Then moments later I saw her interacting in a friendly way, with those she was judging. My eyes rolled so much I could see my brain telling me not to get involved with her. And I was right, because by the time school year ends, her friends hated her and they were talking behind her back too. I met one of my new colleagues at a barbecue that was being hosted by our work. I, a man, drove with another coworker, a woman and a friend of mine, so we arrived together. When I was alone for a moment, this guy, whom I've never spoken to before, comes up next to me and says, "Yo dude, you hittin' that?" Gestures to my friend. I said, "No, and she also has a boyfriend." He very exaggeratedly says, "Damn, yada yada." He got fired 2 years later for sexually harassing an intern. Literally last night, was at a local pool comp and went to introduce myself to my second round opponent. We shake hands and his first words to me are, "Weak fucking handshake bro," followed by, "I hope you like banter mate," then proceeded to talk shit about every aspect of my game. The worst part was he was actually good at pool, so it just seems like he was generally a cunt. Some of his other opponents got it a lot worse than I did as well. Highlight of the night was when the comp host basically yelled in his face, "Everyone in this room fucking hates you," which received a round of applause. He didn't seem to understand why that was. Just banter bro, unamused edit. Ahaha, the comp is 90% regulars that are there every week. This was the guy's first time playing there. He knew no one except for the couple of mates he brought. I can assure people calling me a liar that he was universally hated. He ended up losing the final, which received more of a response than the host yelling at him, but yeah lol. I don't even know why I'm responding to this. I guess I have never had this much attention on anything I have ever shared. On the internet. She showed up to a little get-together and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person, winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friend's plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me and scoffed and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me. I said yes. She told me that with the money that car cost I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crappy credit score or couldn't pay their vehicles off after buying it. Someone who wanted to quit the contest asked for a cigarette. She opened up her purse and showed everyone a fresh pack of smokes and then told everyone why she doesn't smoke and why anyone who asks for a cigarette is either too broke to buy them or doesn't plan ahead of times. The guy asked her for one of her cigarettes, she said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she bought. Basically her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit, and she would give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her but was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Update. So I have gotten a few questions about this girl and that night. Also, who is Gina? There was something like 15 to 20 people there and most entered the contest. I think the pot got up to $100 to $120. The winner was just some guy who I didn't know. He spent the money getting everyone McDonald's and beer, so he was pretty cool. She was about 22 to 23. She had just finished getting her high school diploma because she had dropped out to make money according to her. I think she sold some milkshake things and fitness plans with some MLM. For those wondering what happened to her, I am not 100% what happened to her. She wasn't my friend, but she did show up to a few parties I was at and she seemed calmer. She used to bring her own bottle of liquor and wouldn't share, which was kind of funny because on one occasion they caught her filling her bottle with a bottle of Jack that someone had brought and left on the kitchen counter, but she swore that all she drank was Hennessy and Fireball. Parent of one of my kids' friends at school said there was a mouse in their house and his wife wanted him to kill it, but he didn't want to kill any creatures, he wants to make friends with them instead. But wife insisted, so he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it. But it wasn't dead, so he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still wasn't dead, so he poured boiling water over it to kill it. It still didn't die, so he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead, so he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something, and instead decide to torture it to death slowly in the most agonizingly painful way absolutely blew my mind. Years ago, me and my ex-husband went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie we had dinner at like a chain restaurant, steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all 20-ish. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu he very confidently told us how he came there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they loved the attention. The best part? His daughter worked there. All I could think was how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-yo dad came into my place of work and perved on my coworkers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him 'cause they are paid to do so. My papa would come into the restaurants that I worked in. I usually was his server, but once someone else got his table, my coworkers would fight to take him. My papa was a funny dude that left enormous tips and joked with everyone around him that was cool with it. He was one of those tall skinny guys that just looks like a guy you could talk to. I remember I had told him about one of my coworkers having a rough time of it. He came in, specifically requested her and then left her a $100 bill as a tip. When I got home, he asked if she had gotten the tip. Of course she had, and then broken down hugging me, telling me that my grandfather was the best person she'd ever met. She wasn't wrong. I hate that our boss is a chick. Bitches make the worst bosses. Lunch break of his first day on the job. You know what? I bet she's never heard it phrased that way before, and would appreciate the feedback. Why don't you tell her before you clock back in? Meet your teacher day before my kiddo started kindergarten, and this other parent literally bragged that her kid was completely illiterate, couldn't stand being read to, and she hated reading too. As a teacher, I can tell you who my least favorite parents are every year on day one. It's not the conservative parents or liberal parents. It's not the Christians or the pagans. It's the parents who tell me they don't read, hate to read. One of the go-to questions I ask during the get-to-know-you time is if they've read anything interesting over the summer. I get parents who tell me about fun beach reads or news articles. Some have read frou-frou hippie mindfulness parenting books or spiritual self-help books. All those parents are just fine. The ones who say I don't like to read are always the hardest parents to work with. Their kids don't do homework. They look down on the academic concepts I'm trying to teach. They roll their eyes at parent meetings when I talk about the importance of experiential education or involved learning. The crossover between kids who don't take school seriously and kids with a parent that tells me they don't read or hate reading is nearly an identical group of kids. Shockingly, the kids who grow up in homes that hate literacy are difficult students to teach. My dad hates to read. But when I was a kid, he would fake enjoying it to be a good influence. He would even carry books around and pretend to read them. I thought he was insane when he finally admitted he never actually read any of the books. Honestly, it probably did make me look positively on reading, and I still love to read today. That's honestly legit amazing that he acknowledged something about himself that would reflect poorly on his kids and took direct action against it. I can't imagine something more boring than staring at a book I hate and pretending to read it and then maintaining the illusion for years. What a guy. He learned I'm a physicist, and immediately started talking about infinite energy. Asked a guy what he does at a business networking event. Well, I'm a chiropractor but looking to get out. How come? All these Me Too accusations. In another state I had 3 of them. Good thing none of them went to the bar. Edit. He probably said board instead of bar. As soon as he started complaining about Me Too accusations, I pretty much tuned him out. The new neighbor who after introducing himself pointed to his chest and says, "Instant asshole, just add beer." That's what the family says. Nah, we're not gonna be neighbor pals. Fuck you, Irv, you were an asshole even without beer. When people claim to be an asshole, believe them. I know I'm not supposed to ask, but I need to know. It's not for work or anything. What religion are you? HR manager. I belong to the Church of Our Lady of Perpetual Lawsuits. We had just moved into a new house. An older gentleman, he was 65 and I was 35 at the time, came across the street towards me and stuck out his hand. I shook it and he said, "We love new neighbors. As long as they're white." Started at a new job. Went for a team dinner and the very first thing he did was talk about how bad the dating scene was in the city and how ugly all the women are. Dating scene was absolutely fine BTW. I pull out of the conversation and then he just continues to ramble on about how smart he is versus everyone else. Safe to say I've been avoiding him since. Some people might say I'm an asshole, but I just tell it how it is. 99% chance they are an asshole that I don't want to be around. Told me, yeah, all women are bitches, you included. No offense. Within the first 2 minutes of knowing me. Was a customer at work, naturally I wouldn't be friends. But even in a setting where we could become friends, it wasn't happening. I came up to her to see if she had any questions about our critters. I work in a pet shop. And the very first thing she asked was if parakeets could talk because she wanted to teach them racial slurs. Biggest nope of my life. You're late. I've been here for 10 minutes already. I was only 5 minutes late for the date because I was looking for parking and had let him know.